Speaking of a lot going on in the world, let's take it to New York City, where it's day 3 of jury selection in the trial of Sean Diddy Combs. Jurors have been questioned one by the judge in the case, the prosecution, and the defense. The hip-hop mogul is charged with sex trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy, and transportation to engage in prostitution. If convicted, Combs could face life in prison. Opening statements are scheduled for Monday. Joining us now to discuss this and so much more is Mr. Eric Faddis, criminal defense attorney and former felony prosecutor, back here on the Live Zone. Good to see you, Eric.
Not too bad.
All right, let's jump right into this. I got to tell you, this is truly astonishing to me, following this day by day, minute by minute. Let's start with the jury selection. What are some of the questions, let's say, both the prosecution and the defense are asking the potential jurors?
So both sides want to kind of introduce the jury to some of the more sensitive issues that they might have to grapple with in deliberation. So there's going to be questions about sex, about violence, about drugs, about celebrity. And these were actually included on a questionnaire to the jury. And then the attorneys will have a chance to sort of expound on those questions and the jurors' responses during the jury selection process. So sort of getting the jury primed for the difficult issues that they're going to have to wrestle with as they decide this case.
Yeah, one of the reasons we wanted to have you on, Eric, is because this is nothing new to you. I have never been in this position. So as an attorney, what are you looking for a potential juror? For example, let's say you're on the defense side. What is it that you want that juror to get across immediately to you?
Sure, guys. So jury selection is as much about deselection as it is about identifying jurors who are going to be helpful for your case. So from the defense side, I would be exploring kind of red flags for my case. If there's someone who has delicate sensibilities or perhaps who has been exposed to drug addiction or sexual assault, something like that, I wouldn't want that juror's personal experiences to creep into how they might be seeing this case. So I'm going to want to identify folks who are just too close in their lives to some of these issues that are going to arise, such that it could make them less fair and impartial and less able to decide the case as sort of a blank slate.
Wow. Excuse my ignorance yet again, Eric, but when this process is happening, both the prosecution and the defense happen to be in the same room, or does this happen separately?
Typically, they're both in the same room.
Wow.
And it's tough for the potential jurors, right? Because they're coming into this, they didn't ask to be there, and they're having to disclose private, sensitive information, past experiences about trauma in front of a room full of strangers. That's one reason the defense wanted the questionnaire, because they thought the jurors might be more comfortable discussing some of those more personal matters in writing. So yeah, it's a tough situation for any juror in there.
You talk about a real game of poker, if you will. I can only imagine being both either the defense attorney and or the prosecuting attorney and just looking at both sides to see what's going on as to whether or not that suits my client. Let's talk about Diddy's attorneys, what have been dubbed as super lawyers, if you will. He has some of the best. I don't know why he doesn't have you. But with that being said, I'm curious, does the judge see that as a sense of entitlement, if you will?
There's at least a concern that the jury might see it as a sense of entitlement. Most folks who go to trial, they might have one lawyer or a small team. Here, Diddy has really an elite team of a lot of attorneys going in there. And so there's at least a concern that someone might view that as, oh, there's this rich, entitled celebrity who has more money than God, can get the best team in the world. Is he going to get off on some kind of technicality when he shouldn't? That's at least a concern that's probably running through the head of defense.
All right, so many questions, so little time. And so with that being said, my next question is, should Diddy take the stand? And I know we've heard that question time and time again when it comes to criminal cases, but I'm hoping you can answer yes or no and why as to whether or not he should or should not.
Oh, heavens now. I would absolutely advise him not to take the stand, in part because there's so much information that he really can't deny that he would be cross-examined about. If you look at the Cassie video, the prosecutors would walk through that in painstaking detail, going second by second, essentially saying, hey, isn't this you kicking your girlfriend in the stomach, dragging her by her hair? Wasn't this to intimidate her? There's just so much that it would be difficult for Diddy to answer, and he could do a lot more harm than good for his case if he takes the stand.
All right, Eric, we'll end with this and walk me through this. Correct me if I'm wrong at any point, but it's to my understanding 45 people will be selected overall, which will then be narrowed down to 12. That's what I read thus far. Now, with that, two of the folks that were selected, that does not mean they're going to be on the jury, but they were selected by both the prosecution and the defense yesterday. One of which stated that they will miss out 30% of their income should they serve on the jury because of the time it will take in order to do so. Another said that their son happened to be robbed of his cell phone by 3 black men at one time. Should that be concerning to the defense for either one of those potential jurors?
With jury selection, there's always a burden on a person. That's nothing new. They have to miss work, and that's problematic. Sometimes the jury can be so distracted by those issues that they're not paying close enough attention to the case. That's a concern for both sides. Certainly, if there was a concern that a juror might be thinking about race and might be thinking about some kind of prior victimization that they think was somehow associated with race, when the defendant is black, that is a possible red flag. And if I was defense, I would not want that person on there. We need people who are going to view this with an open mind through a relatively clear lens, and certainly a lens that is devoid of any kind of racial bias or preconceived notion.
Mr. Eric Faddis, he knows his stuff. Yet again, criminal defense attorney and former felony prosecutor joining us right here on the live. So thank you so much, Eric. I truly appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
All right.